If your Explorer window looks like this, then this video is going to be extremely helpful because I'm going to show you an example of how to structure your Roblox games and how to properly organize your scripts. Now, I used to literally keep my games organized like this because I would follow hundreds of tutorials, and if each one of them tells you to add a script, for example, how to make a shop, then I would just do it and add remote events to replicate the stores, and this is just horrible. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this mess. I'm just going to delete every single one of these scripts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a folder to the workspace. So the way I like to organize my workspace is anything that has to be scripted. For example, a part that opens up a shop, or for example, a bunch of checkpoints. Then I would add a folder in the workspace and I'd call it core objects. And then inside of these core objects folder, I'm going to have like a bunch of other folders that will contain stuff that needs to be scripted. For example, if you had a bunch of checkpoints, then I would have a checkpoints folder inside of core objects. I'm going to call it checkpoints, and I'm going to take all of my checkpoints, I'm going to put them here, and this is just how I would do it. And for replicated storage, I would have a folder, and it's going to be called assets. Now, inside of this assets folder, you can literally structure this however you want. For example, you can have a folder and it's going to be called GUIs, or another folder, and this one is going to be, for example, models or pets. But you can just structure this one however you want, really. It depends on your game. And then I would have another folder where I would keep all of my remote events and remote functions. I'm going to call it events. And this will just have remote events and remote functions. And then I would have another folder, and this is going to contain shared modules. It's going to be called shared, and it's going to have modules that are both used in the client and the server. For example, a module that formats numbers, I would put it there. And for server script service, I would just have a folder, and it's going to be called modules, and another folder, and it's going to be called services, and a script. Now this script is going to be called server runtime, and we'll get back to this. I'll show you how it works. And for anything that has to do with client, I would do it like this. I would add a folder to starter player scripts, and this is where I keep all of my scripts, and this folder is going to be called controllers, and another folder, but this time this one is going to be modules. Then I would add a local script this time, and it's going to be called client runtime. Now you might be wondering, what is a service, what is a controller, and what is a module? So let's start by explaining what a service is. A service is basically a module script that will serve a single purpose. For example, we have a bunch of checkpoints here, so we're going to have a service called checkpoint service, and this is where we're going to manage all of the checkpoints in the game, which is the purpose that this service is supposed to serve. This is how I usually structure my services. I have a init function, which stands for initiate, and this function can be accessed from another module. And this is where I connect up all of my events, and you can have multiple functions in a service, basically like a normal script would. But this init function is not an obligation, so it's possible to not have it, so you can just do this if you want, but I usually like to have it included. And a controller is the same thing as a service, but for the client. Services are for the server, and controllers are for the client. And modules are module scripts that have functions that services can use, and they can basically just talk to each other. But also, one thing that I would recommend is not to have a service talk to another and the other service talk to the previous service, if that makes sense. So you shouldn't have two services talk to each other. Now I'm going to tell you what this server runtime and client runtime does. So this will require a module script that we're going to script right now. We're going to add a module script to shared, and we'll call it loader. Oh, sorry, loader. And inside of this loader module, we're going to have a function module.load modules. And this will take a folder, and what we're gonna do is we will loop through that folder of modules. So for underscore comma v in for underscore comma child in folder calling get children do, and I'm going to have a task.spawn function, and I'm going to check if child dot class name is not equal to module script. Then we're just going to continue. Else, what we're gonna do is initiate the module. Also, these 3 lines of code should be before task.spawn. And what we're gonna do in here is require the module. So local required equals required equals require and child. And what we're gonna do now is check if the module that we just required has an init function or initiate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a variable local contains init equals, and it's going to be equal to this line of code right here. And this will just check if there is a function named init or initiate. So I'm going to check if contains init, then required dot init, and that's all we need to do. And you can also put this in a pickle just in case one of the services has a problem. Then this will take care of that. And what I'm going to do now is require this loader module that we just scripted. As you can see, we have it in the shared folder, so now we can access it from the server and the client. But we're going to start with server, and we're going to do local replicated storage equals game calling get service replicated storage, and we're going to do local shared equals replicated storage dot shared, and local loader equals require shared dot loader. And what we're going to do is loader dot load modules, and we're just going to give it our services module. So we're going to initiate all of our services. So we're just going to do script dot parent dot services. And what I want to do is, I think this should be called something like load children, which I think is better. And I'm just going to change this to load children. Okay, so this should work. We're going to do the exact same thing for the client. Go to your client runtime and local replicated storage equals game only get service replicated storage, and local, we're gonna get the shared folder. So we're gonna have to use wait for child because we are doing this in the client. So local shared equals require replicated storage colon wait for child shared. Oh, sorry, we don't need require. That would be used for the loader. So local loader equals require shared dot loader. And now we're gonna do loader dot load children, and we're gonna do script dot parent dot controllers. So in here we load our services, and in here we load our controllers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to enter checkpoint service over here, and I'm going to just print init, and I'm going to add a controller to our controllers folder, and I'm going to call it test controller. And I'm just going to print initiated, and I'm going to play the game now and see if this works. So now we can see that it prints initiated. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not on Polaris Progress, it's basically because this is an alt and I forgot to switch accounts. Anyway, so now we can see that it says initiated in here in test controller, but the server doesn't really work. But if we go ahead and run this, I don't think it will work either. And yeah, it doesn't work. So we're gonna have to fix that. Okay, that was really easy to fix. You just have to remove that contains function line of code, and we're gonna check if required. square brackets init, then require .init. And now if you play the game, the server should work and the controller should also work. So we're gonna add a function to the controller, module.init, and we're gonna see if that works. We're gonna print init client, and we're gonna go back to checkpoint service, and we're gonna do init server, and we're gonna print loaded server, and in here we're gonna print loaded client, and we're gonna play the game and see if this works. And as you can see, all of our modules or services and controllers are loaded. And yeah, that's pretty much how I personally structure my Roblox games. If you found this video helpful, then please subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!